Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We start the June 2024 series, and this is the O level biology 5090 paper 1 2. As we all know, this paper is for 1 hour and it's a multiple choice 40 questions. Now, the first question is a bit challenging. Which type of cell has a cellulose cell wall? You see, cell wall is present also in a bacteria, is also present in a fungus, also present in a plant. But in a bacteria, it is peptidoglycan. It is made up of something known as a protein and a carbohydrate. And in a fungus, it is chitin. So, cell walls are present in fungus and bacteria. But in plant cell, it is cellulose. So, that is why the answer to this would be D. But cell wall is present in bacteria and in fungus. It's only not present in an animal cell. Then coming to question number 2, some young plants are put into the soil and grew well for a few weeks. They then began to show signs of disease. Samples of the diseased leaves were examined using a microscope. Which observation of the organism causing the disease show that it could be a fungus? Now, what is a fungus? Fungus is a long thread-like structure. Yes. Chloroplasts are not present. Yes, so it has to be a tick. Chloroplasts are not present. Cell walls are present. Yes. Nuclei is surrounded by a membrane. Yes. So that is why the answer is A. They are thread-like structures called hyphae, and the whole thing together is called a mycelium. And fungus never has chloroplast. We all know that as teachers, that some of you get this confused. And cell wall is made up of chitin, and the nucleus, it's a eukaryote, so nucleus is surrounded by a membrane. Then coming to question number 3, the cell wall of a plant cell is removed using an enzyme. So we've used an enzyme called cellulase because it's a plant cell. So we remove the cell wall. What would happen if this cell is then placed in distilled water? Well, if there's no cell wall, it's like placing a human cell into a red blood cell, a human red blood cell into water. What is going to happen? The cell would burst as water moves into it. You see, it would take longer for the cell to become turgid. There is no cell wall. The cell wall, in fact, ensures that the cell does not burst. Proteins in the cytoplasm would leave through the cell membrane. Proteins are large molecules. They cannot pass through the cell membrane. The cell would become smaller as water passes out. No, it's placed in distilled water. So the cell without the cell wall, what is going to happen? Water is going to enter. It is going to swell up and it's going to burst. It's going to burst. Now, coming to question number 4, the table shows the concentrations of 4 types of particles in 2 cells. Magnesium ions were 6 in cell 1 and 2. So I've shown it with the green color. And then nitrate ions were 9 in cell 1 and 4 in cell 2. Oxygen molecules were 12 and 9. Water molecules were 320 and 520. Now it says which particle can only move by active transport. Active transport means it has to be low to high. So it is saying magnesium ions cell 1 to cell 2. That is here. That is 6 to 2. This is not active transport. Then nitrate ions are 2 to 1. 2 to 1 is again, what do we have? Nitrate ions are 2 to 1. 2, it was 4. And then it is 1 is 9. So the answer is B. But why is C wrong? Oxygen molecules form 1. So oxygen molecules 12 to 9. That is higher concentration to lower concentration. And water molecules are then from cell 2 to cell 1. So 520 to 320. This is again high to low concentration. So that is why these are wrong. And question number 5, which type of food molecule has the element nitrogen? It is only present in proteins. Amino acid is a protein, so that is why the answer is A. You see, fatty acid is a fats. Fats contain only what? Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Glucose is a carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Glycerol is part of a fat molecule, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Now coming to question number 6, which test can be used to determine the presence of glucose? What is glucose? Glucose is a reducing sugar. So the answer to this is question number 6 is A, Benedict's test. Biuret test is for proteins. You must remember it from the word urea. Ethanol emulsion test is for fats because fats dissolve in ethanol. And iodine test is for starch. Now, these are facts that you've got to know and you've got to remember them. Question number 7. An indicator solution shows the following color changes. Atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration is orange. So we need to know this. So if it's orange, that means it's atmospheric carbon dioxide. High carbon dioxide, when it will be high carbon dioxide, it will be yellow. But then what is high carbon dioxide? Means it needs more respiration because they're checking whether you know what is respiration and photosynthesis. Basically, when you read a question, you've got to understand is what are they asking, which point of the syllabus are they examining? They're actually examining respiration and photosynthesis. So in tube one, there's a black paper, so no light because they were left in the light. So this means this is only respiring and producing carbon dioxide. So if it is producing carbon dioxide, then it will be yellow because there will be high carbon dioxide concentration. In this situation, it has been exposed to light, so it is photosynthesizing and respiring. Please remember, plants respire all the time. But during the daytime, when there's more light, there is going to be more photosynthesis than respiration. Don't say respiration stops. Respiration always takes place. Even when we are sleeping, our cells are respiring. So basically, you've got to understand is that in tube 2, where there's light and there is photosynthesis, there will be low carbon dioxide. So tube 2 has to be purple and this has to be yellow. Because why it's got to be yellow? Because it's only respiring because they put a piece of black paper around it so light is not reaching the plant. And the plant can photosynthesize and of course it respires. So that is why the answer is D. And tube 1 would be yellow and tube 2 would be purple. And coming to question number 8, the diagram shows a section of a leaf. Which numbers indicate cells where both photosynthesis and gas exchange occurs? Well, so it has to have chloroplast. If photosynthesis has to happen, it has to be chloroplast. Now 4 is the xylem, so there's no chloroplast in that. And then 3 is the upper epidermis, that doesn't have any chloroplast. So we are left with 1 and 2. 1 is the guard cell, 2 is the spongy mesophyll. Both have chloroplast, so that is why the answer is A, 1 and 2. Question number 9. Water moves from the soil to the atmosphere through a plant. The water enters the plant to the root hair cells and moves into the root cortex. Where does the water move into from the root cortex? Or where is it going to move into? It's going to move into the xylem vessels. You see, this is the root hair. And then you have the cortex cells. And then finally you have the xylem. So water is going into the root hair cell, then from cell to cell through the cortex. And then finally it's going to reach the xylem. And then why is it going to be pulled up? Because of the transpiration pull. Because water is evaporating from the surface of the leaves. I said water is evaporating from the surface of the leaves. And then the water vapors are diffusing out. So a suction force has been created. And that is called the transpiration pull. Question number 10. The graph shows the loss of water vapor from two different plants growing in identical conditions. Now you can see on the y-axis you have volume of water vapor lost. So this one is losing more water. Now just always remember when you're doing a graph, just put some figures on it. So say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So plant X is losing something like 12 cm cube of water, while plant Y is losing something like 8 cm cube of water. Always when you're reading a graph, put figures on the side, on the y-axis, and the x-axis already has the figures. So the graph shows the loss of water vapor from two different plants growing in identical conditions. What is the possible reason for the difference in the volume of water lost from the two plants? So plant X we know is losing more water and plant Y is losing less water. This is one we get from the graph. But it says what is the possible reason? Plant X has most of the stomata on the lower surface of the leaves. Plant Y has most of the stomata on the upper surface of the leaves. That doesn't matter because you see both plants have 10 leaves. Then of course the situation is if they're present on the upper or the lower surface, it doesn't actually matter. So what you've got to understand is that imagine two plants and imagine then they've got leaves So one has most of the stomata on the lower surface, one has most of the stomata on the upper surface. Then the surface of the mesophyll cells of plant X have a greater surface area. The surfaces of the mesophyll cells of plant Y have a greater surface area. So you know the mesophyll cells is where all the evaporation takes place and where all the water is lost. So if the surfaces of the mesophyll cells of a plant, you see another question, another answer could also have been if more surface area of the leaves, which I've just drawn here and here. The surfaces of the mesophyll cells, you see the mesophyll cells of the plant are the ones which are the palisade mesophyll and the spongy mesophyll. So if one plant has this and one plant has more surface area, the spongy mesophyll cells are more, the air spaces are more, so more surface area is exposed. That is why the answer is C. The surfaces of the mesophyll cells of plant X. Plant X is the one which is losing more water, have a greater surface area. Question number 11. The diagram shows some part of the human digestive system. So P is the mouth, so ingestion. Q is the stomach, where there's going to be digestion. R, where there's going to be absorption. And S, where there's going to be egestion. Which row identifies the main function of each of the labeled parts? So we know that it is ingestion, digestion, absorption, and egestion. So the answer is D. 12th, a dish is filled with agar jelly containing protein. So this is the agar jelly containing protein. This is all the agar jelly containing protein, right? And then it says 4 holes are cut into the jelly and each hole is filled as shown in the diagram. So a hole is cut into it. We've got a little space like this. A hole is cut into it. And we put something in it. And each one is different. In A, we have a pepsin solution. And it has to be the same volume, remember that. And here we have pepsin solution and hydrochloric acid in B, and in here we have distilled water and in agar jelly containing protein and boiled pepsin solution. So boiled pepsin is not going to work because it has been denatured, the enzyme will not work anymore. So it says after 30 minutes, which hole will be surrounded by the largest area without protein? So you see what is going to happen is it's going to diffuse out the enzyme and it's going to digest all the protein. That will give you a clear area if they put some color in it. So all the protein when it's gone, then there will be a big clear area, largest area without protein. So the largest area without protein is the pepsin solution and hydrochloric acid. Because you see pepsin works in the stomach. So we've got to remember that the answer to this will be B. Why would it be B? Because here we have only pepsin. Here we have pepsin and HCl. Here we have boiled pepsin which will not work because pepsin is being digested. And here we have distilled water. Distilled water contains no enzymes. Scientists estimated the areas of the inner surface of different regions of a healthy human digestive system. Which region is the small intestine? Now, this is sort of a weird question, but the answer to that was very simple. It has to be the largest surface area in meter squares. So that's why the answer was D. It's very long. It has the villi, the microvilli, and a large surface area exposed for what? Digestion and absorption. So the small intestine is where all the digestion and absorption is going to take place. Nothing is absorbed in the large intestine except water and salts. Question number 14. The diagram shows an alveolus and a blood capillary. And then they've asked you to identify the letters P, Q, and R. P, something is moving in. Q, something is moving out of the blood. So P is an arrow which is showing from the alveolus into the red blood cell. So that has to be oxygen. And Q, so this has to be oxygen, this has to be carbon dioxide, and R is a red blood cell. It cannot be a white blood cell. So it's a very simple thing. The answer is C. P is oxygen, and Q is carbon dioxide, and R is a red blood cell. It can't be a white blood cell. That would be a really big mistake if somebody thought that was a white blood cell. Question number 15. What is produced during anaerobic respiration in muscles? Now, that's a mistake which many students think there's carbon dioxide being produced. Anaerobic respiration in yeast only produces carbon dioxide. There is no carbon dioxide. So, any answer with carbon dioxide was all wrong. That is why the only answer is D, that lactic acid is produced Carbon dioxide is only produced in anaerobic respiration in geese. So any answer with CO2 was wrong. Student measured the pulse rate in beats per minute 3 times at rest and 3 times after running. The table shows the result. What was their mean heart rate after running to the nearest beats per minute? So you add all of them divided by 3, it is 154.5. So nearest beat is, of course, if it's zero point 0.5 or more than that, then you round it off to 155. And that's why the answer was C, which is 155 beats per minute. Then coming to question number 17, a heart and lung bypass machine is used during heart surgery so that the heart can be stopped to allow an operation to take place. Blood is diverted into the bypass machine from the blood vessel entering the heart from the body. The machine oxygenates the blood and pumps it back into the blood vessel, leaving the heart to return it to the body. Into which blood vessel are the tubes placed to remove the blood from the body to the bypass machine and return the blood to the body? Now, when you read this question, please be very careful. It says the blood is diverted into the bypass machine from the blood vessel entering the heart from the body. So that has to be the vena cava. And then the machine oxygenates the blood and pumps it back into the blood vessel, leaving the heart to return to the body. Which is the blood vessel which leaves the heart to take blood to the entire body? That's the aorta. So the vena cava and the aorta are the ones which you're going to be talking about. They've given you a slightly difficult thing to understand and to comprehend. You see, this is the heart and this is the right side. So the vena cavas are bringing the deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. And from the left ventricle arises the aorta, which is going to carry blood. So basically, what you've got to understand is that it is not going to go to the lungs because it's a heart and a lung bypass machine. So the machine is taking over the functions of the lungs and is going to oxygenate the blood and return it to the aorta. So from the vena cava is the one which is going to go to the aorta. Question number 18. Data on the number of people who suffer from malaria each year in different countries of the world have been collected for many years. Some of the data is shown. In which country was the number of people suffering from malaria in 2019 50% lower than 1990? So very simple. It has to be B because there were 14,000 people in 1990 and now there are 7,000 people in 2019. So it was 50% lower than in 90. So it had to be half. So 14,000 in 1990, 7,000 in 2019. Read the question again. In which country was the number of people suffering from malaria 50% lower than in 1990? Then coming to question number 19. Which disease is strongly associated with cigarette smoking? Anemia is due iron deficiency. B. Bronchitis. Yes, that's the one which is associated with cigarette smoking. Rickets is due to deficiency of calcium and vitamin D. Scurvy is a deficiency of vitamin C. Question number 20 was a little difficult, and this is really examining a new syllabus point because we didn't have this chapter before. It says four groups of people, A, B, C, and D, were exposed to infection by a pathogenic virus. Researchers measured the level of antibodies in their blood before and after they were infected. The results are summarized in the graph. PAL is the protective antibody level, the level required to give protection from the virus. Which group of people would have suffered the effects of the viral infection? Well, you see in all three of them, and this one, the PAL is above the required limit. You see, this is the dotted line shows the required PAL, which protects you. So all of them are higher than that. This one is higher than that. This one is higher before in the PAL. So they all have antibody levels higher, the level required to give protection from the virus. But this is the only one which had the PAL was lower than the required level, the level of antibodies. This is the required level, say that's 50 or maybe 100 or whatever. So all of them reach the antibody level above the PAL, but this was the only one which was less than the PAL. So this is the answer to it. They would have suffered the effects of the viral infection because there they didn't have the antibodies to protect them against the infection. So the answer is B. Then coming to question number 21. What is an example of excretion? Release of hormone into the blood, no, that is secretion. Removal of carbon dioxide from the lungs, yes, because it's a metabolic waste. So that is why the answer to this would be B. Removal of carbon dioxide from the removal of undigested food from the digestive system, that is egestion. It's not excretion. They know that you mix this up. And release of water from the sweat glands, that is actually, sort of secretion. It's not excretion because the removal of urea could be classified as excretion, but not the removal of water. Then coming to question number 22, the diagram shows the amino acid molecule. Which part of the amino acid molecule is removed and used to make urea? Now, I always teach you this is the amino part. So, the amino part is the A part, which is the NH2, which is then converted into urea and then is removed from the system. So, A is the NH2, is the amino part, and urea has nitrogen in it. So, it was very easy. The part which contains nitrogen, you could have guessed that if you really didn't know that. Question number 23. What is a function of sensory neurons? Sensory neuron carries impulses from receptors to, so you'd only have option B or C. Now, the option B, transmitted impulses from receptors to muscles. Sensory neuron can transmit impulses from receptors to muscles or glands. So, the C is more to be correct, transmitting impulses from receptors to the spinal cord. So, 23, the answer is C. Then 24. Question number 24. Description of changes that occur in the eye are listed. Ciliary muscles contract, ciliary muscles relax, suspensory ligaments slack, suspensory ligaments tighten, lens more spherical, lens thinner, light rays refracted less, light rays are refracted more. Which role lists the changes that occur when focusing on a distant and a near object? Now, if you look at the mnemonics that I use, near NMC, near more convex, distant less convex. So looking at all this, you've got to know it. So focusing on a distant object will be less convex. So there has to be 6 in it. Focusing on a distant object had to be. So you've got to figure this out. Which role lists the changes that occur when focusing on a distant? So distant object would be less convex. So what will happen to the ciliary muscles? If it has to become less convex, the ciliary muscles have to relax, the suspensory ligaments have to become tight, the lens becomes thinner, and the light rays are reflected less. So that is why the answer to 24 was D. 2, 4, 6, 7. Near object is more convex, so it's going to be the other way around. You need to revise this chapter if you're not very clear on this. Question number 25. A student is walking along a road when a friend who's hiding jumps out suddenly, giving her a shock. Which graph shows the effect of adrenaline on the heart rate of the student as a result of the shock? X on the graph is the point at which the student friend jumps out suddenly. Now, how are you going to do this question? You see, the heart rate must come down very quickly. It's not going to come down after hours. So it goes up and then it comes down. So it's not going to take that long a time. So the answer is A. You see, this one, the heart rate has come back. This one, the heart rate has come back very quickly here. In fact, it should be even lesser than that. This one, it takes 70 minutes for it to come back. And in this one, we have it doesn't come back at all. So this is wrong. And this one, it goes up and then plateaus and then comes down after a very long time. So this is wrong and this is wrong. So you've got to read the question and then see for yourself what the possible answer could be. So the answer is A. Question number 26. What is a sign of type 1 diabetes? In diabetes, what happens? The islets of Langerhans do not produce insulin, so the person has raised blood glucose levels. So, lack of hemoglobin is an anemia, reduced urine production, too much insulin. These are nothing to do with diabetes. Diabetes is lack of insulin, not too much insulin. Less insulin is produced, so the glucose is not converted to glycogen and stored in the liver. So, more blood glucose levels. In this video, we have completed question 1 to question 26, and the rest will continue in the second video will be after this. So we will be doing the second video, and you can see the whole paper in these two videos. Thank you very much.